Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. I'm still recovering from a surgery right now, which is why my face is not on the screen, but the situation in Minnesota continues to get crazier and crazier. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about it today. So forgive me if this one is a little more casual, just me kind of running through the news, not as organized as usual, but I did want to just kind of share my thoughts since I could finally get up and into a chair. So I'm going to dive into that real quick here. I'm sure you guys have seen that Minnesota has only escalated since the last show that we talked about it. And it's been an interesting development over the time here. I wanted to talk about the different dynamics, the leftists who are involving themselves, the tactics that they're using, the rhetoric that the different politicians are engaging in, and then, of course, also the way that the Trump administration is responding. So we'll just jump right into this here. This is uh, some of the footage that has been coming out of Minneapolis. We, of course, have seen Antifa rioters on the streets wherever leftist activism goes. It tends to develop into this kind of violence. This is something we see on a regular basis. The left is a violent movement. They encourage violence. They work together with different NGOs and with different online organizations and larger, ways to coordinate their efforts in order to produce these outcomes. None of this, remember, is a mistake. This is all the intended outcome. We can see here some Minneapolis rioters who are breaking into a federal building, as Savannah Hernandez is reporting here. Let's watch that real quick. You see him here with the hatchet. Of course, they're filming everything because they're proud of what they're doing. They want to make sure they have the footage. Breaking here into the vehicle, stealing a rifle bag here. So there's a federally owned weapon. So we've already got a very serious crime involved. They're getting different documents out of here. Everything out of the vehicle is being raided. So she says here, Minneapolis rioters are now breaking into federal vehicles, stole a FBI rifle, ammunition, and sensitive documents with DHS agents' information and locations. So a couple things here to remember. First, we're seeing the raiding of these vehicles. And as part of the raiding of these vehicles, we have different terrorists. And that is the correct term for this, guys. Once your movement has moved, they're not chanting in the streets. They're not even rioting in the traditional sense of they're like looting a target for TVs or something. That's really bad. That's not okay. But it's not even just that kind of disorganized, violent looting. This is full on an act of terror. These people are striking government vehicles. They are stealing federal weapons and ammunition out of those vehicles. The very likelihood that something like that will be deployed against an ICE agent is very high. These are people who are looking to murder ICE agents. We've already seen them try to do that multiple times, and including shooting at them with rifles. They attempted to kill multiple ICE agents previously, but ended up only shooting the detainees those ICE agents were handling in a van. So we know these are the kind of people who will absolutely turn that weapon on and try to murder ICE agents in the field. In addition to this, they're also securing these documents, and we know that Antifa and the news media have been working, and to be really clear, the media is working with Antifa. This is a organized terrorist operation in the left. The media knows what it's doing, and they are working to dox these ICE agents. Now, a lot of leftists have complained about the masks being used by ICE agents, which is rather ironic, seeing as they all tried to force us at gunpoint to wear masks a few years ago. But they've been complaining that the ICE agents are hiding their identity. And of course, I would prefer that we not have a situation in which our federal officers, our law enforcement needs to hide their identity. I think that's generally better for a police force to be face to face to people. We don't want stormtroopers. We want that. However, the left is manufacturing this situation. They know what they're doing. They know why they're forcing the ICE agents to wear masks, because these insane leftists will show up to these people's house. They will harass them. They will try to do violence to them. They'll try to intimidate their families. This is already a common practice of the left. And when they secure documents like this, they can get additional information on these ICE agents, and of course, plan and coordinate additional violence. They've already doxed the ICE agent who was hit by the car, who was almost killed by the Antifa terrorist who ended up getting shot in her car. However, that's not enough for them. They need to ruin and destroy the lives of everyone involved. And this is, how the operation works. It's not enough to simply repel the actions of these people because they're going to hunt you down. There is no leaving you alone for the left. Once you have involved yourself in trying to stop their spree of violence, and these people are unhinged terrorists who are allowed to operate in the United States. Once these terrorists see you attempting to stop their violence, their political violence, they will hunt you down. They'll try to destroy your life. They'll try to, get your kids, hurt. This is what they're going to do. They're going to show up at your parents' house, your kids' school. They're going to send messages. They're going to intimidate you. This is the tactic the left is making sure to deploy. So we have dangerous weapons. We have ammunition. These are obviously very serious crimes. Now, obviously during J6, we had a lot of people in the crowd, and a lot of those people went to jail for all kinds of stuff, for standing outside. Some people weren't even there, ended up going to jail for years, almost getting multiple life sentences for not even appearing at the event. And so the fact that these guys are here and proudly filming themselves should make it relatively easy to figure out who they are. If we can track the cell phones for everybody at J6, we can certainly do it for everybody who was around, this vehicle. And everyone involved in here should spend, like 5 to 10 years in a federal prison. And I'm not kidding at all. These guys are taking hatchets to the vehicles of federal officers. They are stealing very dangerous weapons out of those vehicles along with ammunition. They are securing material so that they can dox and probably harass and or kill ICE agents. Every one of these people should be in jail. They should spend a good long chunk of their lives in jail. And so this needs to be escalated, obviously. I know that a lot of this sounds tiresome, guys. I know you hear me say a lot of this stuff over and over again, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but it just has to be said. We have to repeat it. We have to repeat it over and over again until it takes hold. We need the preference cascade. People need to recognize that this is okay. It's not that it's okay what they're doing here, but it's okay to say that these people need to be punished, that they need to spend 5 years in jail, that they need to be in very, very, very difficult situations because of the actions they've taken. Because if this continues to just go unabated, there's going to be serious, this is only going to get worse. And it has. It's continued. I keep saying, hey, if we don't do anything, it's going to get worse. And then it gets worse and we don't do anything. Again, I understand, I don't want to fall into that learned helplessness cycle. But since I can't arrest anyone personally, the only thing that I have left to do is say the federal government has to take very serious action on this. And we can see that, Tim Walz is not somebody who's very interested in regulating the behavior here early on in this, terroristic siege of his state. He encourages violence. He says that ICE officers are going door to door and ordering you to turn in your neighbors of color. That's because Tim Walz is trying to justify violence. He wants to paint ICE agents as some kind of Nazis, some kind of fascists for doing the very simple job of removing these people from a country they don't belong in. This is what deportations are always going to look like. Deportations are going to require the physical removal of people. And the people they're going after are largely the worst people first. Now, it's not everybody. They're going after the worst people first. But if they happen to find someone there who's, illegal and they also need to be deported, they get included too. So it's mostly gangbangers. It's mostly drug dealers. It's mostly people who are doing violence. But that's not it. And by the way, that's good. We want to deport all the illegal aliens. Every illegal alien is a criminal. They all have to go back. Every one of them. It's not about, only the violent ones, only the dangerous ones. No, every single one of these people needs to go back. Every single one of them. I don't care if they haven't gotten a traffic ticket the entire time they've been in the US. They crossed the border illegally. They need to go home. End of story. So it's good to start with the worst people. It's good just practically. It makes more sense to go after the most dangerous people because they're the ones who are going to create the most danger. It also makes sense to go after them just optically and legally because it's easiest to justify both in the public imagination and in the courts their deportation. Though we see even then the media constantly lies and the courts work against the administration. So even with that strategy of prudently going after the worst actors first, you still have a scenario where it's difficult, to go through this. But the optics are going to be what the optics are going to be. With any police situation, you're going to have a scenario where, I think the ICE agents are mostly doing a great job. This is not, I'm not denigrating ICE agents at all, to be very clear. But prepare yourself, like steel your heart. You're going to get a bad shooting. Like, I don't think the one that we saw with, the lesbian who tried to run over the ICE officer, I don't think that was a bad shoot at all. I think that was a perfectly justifiable shoot. But I just want to make you aware, you're going to get a bad shooting. Like, you're going to get a piece of bad behavior from ICE officers. Something's going to stick. It's going to happen. Okay. And you can't go running off the minute. You can't go, with your tail between your legs and all of a sudden, oh no, we can't enforce the law just because someone did the wrong thing. Because police make mistakes. Okay. Prison guards make mistakes. FBI agents make mistakes for sure. Like, all law enforcement will make mistakes. Now, that doesn't mean that that's okay. It doesn't mean that they just have a blank check to treat people however they want. But we do need to understand that a certain percentage of, arrests are wrong. A certain percentage of actions by law enforcement are mistakes. That's going to happen. There might even be a malicious guy out there that does something mean to someone that they shouldn't do as an ICE officer. And you just need to be prepared for that stuff to come. And you can't run away from the fact these people have to be deported just because that happens. Okay. Now, you need to keep the percentage low. I want to see very few mistakes by ICE agents. I want to see them overall doing the right thing, comporting themselves properly, which I think they are. So there's not a problem there. If there was, if we got an overwhelming amount of bad behavior from ICE agents, it might be worth saying something. But what can't happen is the deportations cannot stop. They cannot stop. They will not stop. It's not okay. Can't back down. And the good news is the Trump administration has been saying that they don't intend to do so. So here is Donald Trump sending out his truths. He doesn't tweet, he truths. And you can see the announcement here. The White House reposted it on their Twitter account. Trump says, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, we're only trying to do their job. I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Now, of course, that's encouraging. That's what should happen if Minnesota is out of control, if law and order is completely broken down. Then you have to take some kind of action. And to be clear, this is a real problem because Minnesota is obviously working to fight against ICE. That's why it's happening here, right? In Florida, deportations are happening. I live in Florida. Deportations are happening. But they are not meeting this kind of resistance because we have a Republican governor. We have Ron DeSantis. We have a friendly conservative government. And, I'm sure there are people in Florida who want to oppose the deportation, but they're simply not going to get away with it because the police aren't their side. And this is what you need to understand about protests. We've talked about this before, but something to just keep in mind. Protests are largely something that only happens when you have power on your side. Protests are not the little guy fighting against the big guy. It's the people in charge are allowing crowds to do things because they want them to be done. And to be clear, Tim Walz wants the violence in Minnesota. So do a lot of the officials in Minnesota. The police are on the side of the rioters. They're working with them. So is the district attorneys and the governor and all these different officials. They want the violence. They want the violence. And so they're encouraging it. And so you have to understand that when the government is looking at what's going on here, it has to evaluate, can we operate safely inside this area? And you have to start looking at this as really an occupied hostile area in which, American citizens, true American patriots are not safe. There are, insurrectionists, there are terrorists in this area that want to hurt and kill ICE agents. And the government largely agrees with them and wants to cover for them while they do this. So I think, it's critical for Trump to have this tool in his tool bag and to know critically when to deploy it. And this is the real edge he's walking on because, Tim Walz is talking a lot. He's throwing around a lot of, Civil War rhetoric about different, we were here during the Civil War. We fought back against those Confederates and all these different, leftists who have suddenly discovered, the second coming of states' rights. All of a sudden they're big John C. Calhoun fans. You turns out you can actually just annul federal law, you know, and Andrew Jackson was wrong. And, ultimately, I'm a fan of state rights, but it's clear that we don't have those. State rights just have not existed for a very long time, at least not since the 1860s. They certainly didn't exist, previously when the federal government was sending the 101st Airborne down to the South to march kids into schools at bayonet point. So, we had the mayor of Minnesota saying, "Can you imagine? Can you imagine what it would be like to have an occupying force in your state, someone who's hostile to your beliefs and is forcing you to do something you don't want to do?" It's like, yeah, man, I can imagine that. I'm from the South. We were occupied. Like, we literally had a military occupation during Reconstruction. And then, in various times, the United States Army, not the National Guard, not ICE, not some federal agency, but the actual army of the United States was deployed into the South to force decisions that the North wanted into our area. I mean, maybe you think that's justified, maybe you don't, but don't tell me about states' rights. Don't tell me about the dangers of the Insurrection Act. I know what you guys do. I know who you are. I know what you really believe. You're not going to suddenly fool me by deciding to, dust off that old 10th Amendment argument and just rediscover the fact that federalism is a thing. I know at the end of the day, the minute you're in power, you're going to turn right around and start marching troops into, my hometown. I have no doubt about that. So I don't feel anything bad for you here. I don't think this is any level of hypocrisy. This is simply the wages of what you've done. But of course, the Trump administration has to be careful. People are thinking about midterms. They're worried about, the optics involved. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But, the Trump administration does have to be prudent about the deployment of kind of the Insurrection Act and deploying troops or anything else into these areas. The more B-roll of federal agents and troops and people, getting cracked down on that the left can deploy, the more they can rile up their stuff. Now, I don't think that's that's an excuse to just, basically cuck on all this stuff to completely, give up and, oh, well, if we got bad optics, then we just can't do anything. Like I said, no, the deportations have to take place. They will take place. The deportations must continue, so they will continue. So the only question is, what's the prudent way to handle the optics situation in that area? And you care about them as long as you can. At some point, maybe you can't. At some point, you just have to take action. And who cares? The lefts are going to spin this. The media is going to lie about it no matter what. So you do what you have to do. But up until you have to do what you have to do, you try to be as careful with the optics as you can, because it really just makes you far more likely to be successful. And that is, of course, the reason to do all of this. So you'll see here that then later Tim Walz comes out the next day and he says, "Well, actually, I'm going to make a different deal. I'll make a direct appeal to the president. Let's turn down the temperature down. Let's stop the campaign of retribution. This is not who we are. This is an appeal to Minnesotans. I know this is scary. We must speak out loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. We cannot fan the flames of chaos." That's what he wants. Now, obviously, that's what Tim Walz wants. Tim Walz wants the violence, but he got in a little over his head. And this is difficult because Tim Walz has already been kind of tarnished by the Somali scandal, and it's very clear that he is probably unlikely to continue as the governor. He's decided he's not going to run for his next term. So he is in this very strange, weak position where he was trying to kind of get out the door, and now this whole thing has exploded, and he's trying to be the rebel leader while also recognizing that his goose is already cooked politically. And so he's got to find this middle ground of like not backing down from Trump, but also this. So that's kind of what he's trying to do here. So we can also see a few more interesting things in this collection here. We have the Antifa guys. Here they are. And hoping that they can create a slip and fall situation for ICE. They're pouring the water on here, assuming that the incredibly cold conditions will immediately turn this into something that the ICE agents will slip on somewhere. So it's good to know that basically Antifa is now deploying the tactics of Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. Little do they know that Donald Trump is in Home Alone too. So we have the secret inside agent in this one. we ultimately have home alone supremacy on the right. But you can see this is kind of the petty nature of these people, and this is so. I've said this before, but this is kind of a problem. And I'm trust me, I'm not asking for more efficient radicals. I'm not hoping for more successfully violent leftists. However, part of this is just how dumb these people are, and how goofy and ridiculous they are. Like everything they know literally is from a movie. Like they're children. They really are just emotional children. But that doesn't mean they can't be dangerous. And so this creates this strange dynamic where a lot of what these guys do is cartoonish and dumb and weak. I don't know if you remember when that woman got herself shot after trying to murder the ICE agent. You had some guy doing, "You're doing a heckin' murder," like he came directly out of a subreddit. Like he's a cartoon that we would make up on the internet about how leftists behave. But this they really are basing their lives off Marvel movies and that kind of stuff. But so it makes them really inefficient. They shoot the wrong people, they attack the wrong people, they do stupid stuff like this, and so that kind of makes them so cartoonish that perhaps they seem not dangerous. So this isn't a big deal, but it is a big deal because these people can still get people killed. As we've seen, they are still dangerous. They can still hurt people. And eventually they won't be bad at this. Like at some point they'll do this enough to where they will get more efficient at it, and probably never, they're never going to be Delta Force. But these guys will get to the point where they learn how to really kill people. And that's building. Like don't lie to yourself about what's happening here. I know it's really look, and I respect a lot of people who are saying this. I understand why. I get it. Nothing ever happens and the left isn't really a problem, and you don't need to worry about civil war or anything that's ridiculous, and don't be silly. But the leftists are putting themselves in a position where more and more of these people are going to get insane, radical, violent. And I know the hope is that ultimately they just kind of calm down. They see how fruitless they are with their actions, and they're just going to back away. I promise you they're not, man. And I'm just as right about this as I was when you told you the woke isn't going away. Like I promise you, these people are true believers. They are going to keep pushing. They cannot exist in a world where the left is not totally in charge. You have to remember that immigration is an existential issue for the left. It is just as an existential issue for the left as it is for the right. They cannot win elections in an America that is demographically secure. Like if America does not have open borders where they are shipping in large amounts of people who are ultimately going to vote for them because they get benefits and steal everything from the middle class, if they don't have those people, they can't win. They're just not going to win elections. So they have to do this. Like they can, again, I know a lot of people bag on the Trump administration, but the Trump administration has effectively ended illegal immigration. I'm going to say that again because it was unthinkable for my entire life. We got 1,000 reasons why Republican presidents couldn't do this. And the Trump administration said, no, the border is closed and illegal immigration is all but over. That's insane. Like we need more. Don't get me wrong. We need more. It's not enough. It's not sufficient. But that victory is huge. And the left knows it. Okay, man. They went from 8 million people getting in under Biden at least to like nobody. And that's a problem for them, especially if we start removing the people they got in here, especially if we start attacking birthright citizenship, looking through voter rolls, fixing the voting. All of a sudden, all the voter fraud the left has been relying on to stay politically relevant disappears. And who knows what would a real election in the United States look like? You don't even know, man. You don't even know. That's the thing. We don't even know what a real election in our country looks like, because for our entire lives, elections have been packed full of illegals. They've been packed full of this voter fraud that the left has been using. That's the reality. We don't even know what a real election looks like. The Republicans are winning a decent amount even without that change. What happens if there's a permanent shift and the left can no longer bring in these people? What does that look like? We just don't know. But I bet you it's going to be really in favor of the right. And the left knows this and they're terrified about this. And so they're going to keep pushing on this stuff. So speaking of how they're going to keep pushing on this stuff, we can see the threats that are coming out of the left. So here is just an average leftist account, talking about how we need to start bum rushing these people, start putting down your phones, start attacking them. This guy also, to be clear, same account. He's also talked about how ICE agents, they're just wearing like vests and, bulletproof vests and jeans. So you need to start targeting this area and this area and this area. He's handing out information about how to be a terrorist. He's still on Twitter. Nothing has been taken down. He's not being banned. I don't know if the FBI is knocking on this guy's door, but they should be. Like I don't know why Twitter still has this account active, but it has plenty of convincing evidence that shows it's a terrorist account, encouraging violence against federal officers. Again, if you're a conservative, posting about how you don't like abortion and maybe you go protest by sitting in an abortion clinic, you're going to spend like 10 years in jail. But this guy can just say, yeah, let's go kill some ICE officers here, how to do it. And the posts are up on Twitter. In addition to that, we can see someone, we got, these guys. I don't think this guy has any official position. He's just some dude on Twitter. But he's saying to all ICE agents, when Trump's gone, so's your job and your immunity, and we won't forget what you did. So this is an open threat from leftists saying, hey, as soon as you lose an election, we will prosecute everybody who was involved in ICE. You won't be protected. As soon as Trump's out of office, you're fired. You lose your federal immunity. We're going after you. I don't know if you guys are familiar with history at all, but there's a classic tradition of going out and threatening armed men, saying, "Hey, if political leadership changes, you'll lose everything. You'll go to jail. We'll destroy your life." It's like, all right, then I guess we won't lose power ever again. Like, this is how you get Caesar. This is how you back people up to the Rubicon. And I know we said this 1,000 times, and maybe Trump will ignore all of that again. Maybe the Republican Party will ignore that again. But this is the kind of rhetoric that gets you there. I mean, if the penalty for losing an election is going to jail forever, but the penalty for cooing the government is basically the same, well, why not coup the government, right? Like what pretty simple calculation. We can see the same thing here from Hakeem Jeffries, who of course actually is a congressman. And he says, to all members of the Trump administration, the incitement, engagement in state violence against the American people is a serious crime. It's not incitement to violence. It's them doing their job. But anyway, Donald Trump will leave office long before the 5-year statute of limitation expires. You are hereby put on notice. So again, he's threatening every Trump administration official, everyone in ICE, all of these people. As soon as Trump loses power, as soon as you guys are no longer in power, we're putting all of you guys in jail. You're all going to jail. It's all serious crime. So he's threatening Stephen Miller here, obviously, openly. But this is even more of the same behavior where it's like, okay, guys, if you ever lose an election again, if you ever lose power again, then we're just going to come after all of you and throw them in jail. The Democrats are not hesitating. They're making it very clear what their plan is. The minute they win the next election, they will throw all of their political enemies in jail. And unlike the Trump administration, they mean it. Like they will do it. We've seen them do it. They'll continue to do it. This is not a question. It's not, oh, do they have the stomach for it? No, we've watched them do this in mass, and they will absolutely go right back to it, but 10 times harder because now they've actually seen the right pushback a little bit. And I just want to be really clear here. I'm not calling for anything, but I'm just stating the truth. Democracy is over, guys. Democracy is over. It used to be that we just called the legitimacy of elections, into question. Every election of my adult life has been called into question. Legitimacy is called into question. From George W. Bush getting his votes counted against I suddenly have forgotten Al Gore. There we go. Or with Barack Obama and his birth certificate, or Donald Trump and the Russiagate, or whatever. Like it's, Joe Biden and the obvious voter fraud that went on there. Like we used to just call these people in, these elections into question, which is already undermining, the idea of a peaceful transfer of power. But now there is no peaceful transfer of power. The Democrats are being very clear. Peaceful transfer of power is no longer possible. If you transfer power to the Democrats, they will use that power to kill you or put you in prison. They are saying it out loud. There's no question there. There's no hesitation. And they mean it. They mean every word of it. It's not bluster. It's not like it is with Trump. It's not like it is with some, internet poster. These guys will absolutely do this. So they simply cannot have power again. The peaceful transfer of power in the United States is over, and the Democrats have declared that. They will never allow for a peaceful transfer of power again. If you hand them power after an election, they will kill you or put you in jail. They're announcing that openly. They're already trying to kill you when they're not in power. They tried to put you in jail last time they were in power. Now they will just try to do both when they're back in power. They will not hesitate. So the peaceful transfer of power in the United States is effectively over, and the Democrats have declared it dead. If you try to govern as a president of the United States and they disagree with you, as soon as you lose power, you go to jail. And so does your administration, and so do the people who worked for you, even in, just general law enforcement capacity. Everyone goes to jail or gets killed. That's the Democrats' declaration going forward. They're not hesitating. They're not mincing their words. This is where we're at. And so, again, yeah, I know people don't like the escalating rhetoric, but that I really don't see how we could go anywhere else. I don't. If someone else can explain the pathways forward, please help me. Again, I know a lot of people just want to believe that the left is like, and I'm sure that I don't think that ultimately Minneapolis is going to be the flashpoint. Like, I don't think this is going to be the final nail in the straw that, or the final nail in the coffin. I mixed my metaphors there. The final nail in the coffin that's going to, just kick everything off and end the republic and move us into the empire or something. But I do think this is just a very clear indication that the trend is not stopping, that we're going to continue to move this direction unless something pretty radical happens. And so, again, this might not be the one instance where it all goes down, but that instance is coming. Like, we are on a trajectory that is unavoidable unless the left somehow moderates. And everyone's to say, oh, well, as soon as they realize this doesn't work, they'll moderate. I don't think so. I don't think they will. I think some percentage of them will continue to try to, but the left wants to do this. They want the violence. This is what the left wants. Okay, this is not some strange outcome. This is not some unpredictable outcome from their previous rhetoric and behavior. I had the question. I had my bet going with Academic Agent, and I thought there'd be violence right after Kamala Harris lost. I really did, and so he was right about that point. He was right that the violence wasn't right away, but he was wrong in the long term. Because it turns out it was just kind of a this is something that was more of a slow burn. It took the left several months to really start building up some momentum. They were very shocked from everything that happened there. They were backing away and trying to recuperate after the loss in the election to Trump. But we now got to the point where they've kind of reorganized themselves and they're working to push back. And this is kind of where they're at. Right. This is what they've settled on. And it's just open violence, because they recognize that if the Trump administration does deport people in mass, their political formula is over. Right. Like, they can't really do much else. So this is kind of where things are going. And you can see this next point of probable escalation here. Here's Stephen Miller. There's a Libs of TikTok post here, says Mustafa, Star Wars name, a Biden appointed judge, has blocked the federal government from accessing Oregon's voter data. So you can't check to see if there's been voter fraud. And Stephen Miller says they load illegals onto the voter rolls, harvest their votes, and they appoint judges who they know will cover their crimes. And of course, Stephen's exactly right. This is exactly what I've been saying for years. Many other people have said it too. And Stephen Miller simply echoing things I'm sure he was aware of before we said them, but echoing them now as well. And as he does that, you have to ask some questions. Everything in that statement is correct, and it's obviously correct. He knows it, so it's not like the Trump administration isn't aware. One of the top guys, arguably the mastermind of large chunks of the Trump administration, is saying here's the problem. The leftists set up these fraud schemes. They harvest the votes and then they hide behind the judges, and that's true. But then we have a real question here, and this is like existential. Okay. How do you have a democracy? How do you have we can get into the, how I feel about that term. But how do you have any system where popular sovereignty is the way you choose elected officials, who's going to be in power, where voter fraud is occurring and the judges are enabling it? And I don't say that facetiously. I'm not saying that rhetorically. I'm not saying that to escalate things or have any kind of rhetoric. I'm genuinely asking, what do you do when you're in this scenario. You know voter fraud is occurring, so the elections don't work. The left is deploying exactly the tactic Stephen Miller is explaining. So they know this is what the left is doing. They are rigging elections. Okay. So fact one, left is rigging elections. Fact two, the judges are protecting them. The judges are working actively. Activist judges are coordinating to make sure that the voter fraud scheme is not uncovered, that it is not broken, that the left can continue to deploy the same tactic. So if we know voter fraud is happening, elections are how we decide our leaders, and the judges are stopping us from solving the voter fraud problem, then I only really see two solutions, right? Like there's only two paths forward. One, you ignore the judges. You just ignore them and you go after this stuff anyway. You go in and you rip out hard drives if you need to. You do what you have to do. You deport whoever you want, and you ignore the judges because you know the judges are conspiring against you. They don't care about the law. They don't care about rule of law. They're not doing their job. They're agents of the Democratic Party. That's your first option. The second option is you just start ignoring elections because they're illegitimate, right? If you can't get in and prove that the elections are fraudulent, and you can't stop the election fraud because the judges are blocking you, then you have to stop paying attention to elections, right? They just can't matter anymore because you know they're fraudulent. Like if they're fraudulent and we're not allowed to fix it, then you have to just stop caring about elections. I mean, the only third option is you just keep letting the left do what they're doing, hold fraudulent elections, and slowly wait for the left to kill you. Those are all of the available options. You ignored the judges, you ignore elections, or you just sit there and watch the left kill you. Because they've said, once we're in power, and they will be in power because they have voter fraud on their side, being protected by the judges, as soon as we transfer power, we have an election, and transfer power, we're going to put you all in jail or kill you. Left is announcing that openly. So how many options do you have left? You know, you can stop listening to judges and do what needs to get done and hope that you can save the electoral process. You can just ignore elections and say, that doesn't matter anymore. We're staying in power. Or you sit around and you watch these people kill you and your children or throw you in jail. Those, if anyone has another option, if anyone has another explanation, please let me know. Like I am genuinely without any other avenues of understanding what other steps you take. Like one of these things has to give. Like right now, this is the reality. And of course, the administration knows this. Stephen Miller knows this. I don't think I'm telling Stephen Miller anything he doesn't know. So what's he doing here? Well, I mean, he could be trying to build rhetorically justification for taking one of those one of those first two actions. Because right now we're only doing number 3. So maybe he's trying to build that preference cascade. Maybe he's trying to normalize the idea that something drastic has to happen. That's what I'm hoping. I hope that's what the rhetorical build is for. Because if not, then we really are definitely screwed. Like we are in a very serious, bad situation. So I really hope that Miller, that, you know, this is what the administration is moving towards, because we simply can't sit around and say, yeah, voter fraud's real. And yeah, we know that the judges are actively defending the voter fraud, but we're not going to defy the judges and we're going to respect the voter fraud elections. You can't do that. That's like, I'm not committing suicide for the rule of law, which we're not even following. I'm not committing suicide so that principled conservatives can get themselves thrown in jail while they follow the rules and the other guys don't. Like, that's dumb. And you can't make me. So if that's how you want to, you know, if you want to spend the next 20 years cooling yourselves your heels in a federal penitentiary because you didn't want to violate the sanctity of, I don't know, judicial whatever, fine. I'm not doing it. So someone needs to figure this out. Like pretty serious action he's taken. Again, has to be optical, just like in Minneapolis. You don't want to, in Minnesota, you don't want to just, you know, deploy the guard right away and just start cracking skulls and being like, this is how it is. Cause you gotta, you know, you still have to worry about public opinion. It's a real thing in any regime, but it's still very much a thing in ours. So you can't just go in there, but you got to have a plan. And Trump administration has started deploying it. I know they've only been around, for a year at this point. So you've only got 4. So 1/4 of the time is basically already toast. And this is also where it becomes really important to recognize the dynamic that's at play in the American power structure right now, because obviously, at this point, Congress doesn't really matter. The Republicans have had control of both houses the whole time that Trump has been in office since he returned. Nothing has been done. The big beautiful bill went through. That's it. And yeah, it's good to have the funding. We needed that from ICE. Obviously, that's great, and I'm glad that happened. But otherwise, Congress has been completely useless. They have not been turning. If they were serious, they'd have been turning every one of Trump's executive orders into law immediately. We wouldn't even need to take any of this stuff to court because it would be, already law everywhere. And the Republican Congress is just complete joke. They're useless. And so you have to understand that more or less now Congress is just like vestigial. It's no longer relevant to American politics. American politics exists between the executive branch and the judicial branch. You have the executive who can take immediate action, and the judges that still have the cultural cachet to stop these things. But Congress is basically completely defunct at this point, which is again what you kind of expect as you move towards empire, as the republic ends. It's the judges and the kings that matter. It's not the legislature stops to matter really. And so you have this shootout in a weird way. It's kind of half the executive branch and half the judiciary versus the other half of the executive branch and half the judiciary. So it's like Trump and the amount of the federal government he controls versus the bureaucracy that he's still trying to get a hold of, versus like most of the lower courts and a lot of the circuit courts, but like the Supreme Court's kind of conservative, but not really, because of like how terrible people like Barrett are. But like ultimately, that's the battle going on between these people. And so really, we talk about, the midterms, but the midterms only really matter because they keep Congress from like impeaching you or doing a bunch of investigations, calling people to testify. Basically, like if the Dems get Congress, they're just going to like call every Trump official to testify every single day and just grind the entire administration to a halt. So that's really the only reason that midterms matter, not because they're going to like pass any laws or anything. Congress is dead. Legislation's more or less done in the United States. We can't pass budgets anymore. We can't pass any real, meaningful bills anymore. We don't do any of that stuff. It's really all just governing out of the executive branch and then seeing what the Congress will say. The federal bureaucracy tries to do its thing, the executive branch tries to do its thing, and then Congress just kind of like, sits around while the judges mediate all this. And so that's really the power dynamic that's in play in modern America. So let's see. Other events that occurred during this, of course, we had a ICE involved shooting. This was originally, the story coming out of the media was, of course, poor innocent, person in Minnesota, Minneapolis gets shot in the leg. What we discover is actually there was a illegal Venezuelan migrant fleeing from the ICE agents. As he was fleeing, 2 other Venezuelan migrants, I believe both of them were Venezuelan, ambushed the ICE officer and started beating him with a shovel and a broom. And then, defending himself from 3 assailants, one with which most certainly had a deadly weapon, the officer involved drew his weapon and fired and hit the original guy who was chasing in the leg. Now, all of these people have been apprehended. So I'm assuming they will all be deported. But this is the kind of story that's constantly coming out. We see, you probably saw the footage of, some 17-year-old getting grabbed from Target. Everyone freaked out until it came out that actually that 17-year-old had been, again, assaulting ICE agents. We've gotten a lot of these stories where it's, this crazy ICE violence. And then it turns out actually it's entirely justified. You have assault with a deadly weapon, but it's okay because the Democrats are, the media is geared up. It doesn't matter what actually happened in all of these. ICE is always guilty. It's always too much violence. Again, this is going to come, steel yourself. There will be a legitimate, like, bad shoot or, ugly arrest or something like that. And as long as that's still not the vast majority of apprehensions, then that shouldn't happen. But we need to continue what we're doing. But you just need to prepare yourself. But even then, most of this stuff coming out is just complete garbage. It's all lies. The media is spreading about ICE agents and kind of what tactics they're deploying. This situation I think is ultimately probably going to calm down. Minnesota's too cold. It's too hard for activists to get up there. I don't think they can keep it going for too long. It's clear that Tim Walz has already kind of met a threshold he is uncomfortable with when it comes to violence and that kind of thing in the state. But don't don't be mistaken. There's going to be more of this. There'll be another flashpoint. We've already seen this as ICE deploys. There'll be another liberal state. They'll ramp up operations. Someone else. But I do have to say, I'm very glad to see the Trump administration not back down from this. The easiest thing in the world would have been to say, okay, we're going to put a pause on this until we can review whatever, blah blah blah. All the HR cover your butt stuff. And instead, the Trump administration said, nope, we're deporting you 10 times harder. The wall's getting 10 feet taller. We're recruiting any more people. This is going to happen. And I'm glad to see that because there's been a lot of screaming and yelling. All the weak-willed, people I've been warning you about for years are out there doing it. We got a bunch of libertarians, Justin Amash, and all these people going out. I can't believe that ICE would arrest somebody. Can you believe that they're agents of the government are arresting people? Because there's this thing among libertarians where there are open borders libertarians, which are just insane people. They're the same people who are for lowering the age of consent and all that stuff. But then you also have these guys who try to act as if they're like reasonable libertarians. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I'm one of those reasonable libertarians. I don't believe in open borders unless, we build a wall or we fund deportations or, federal agents go out and issue lawful deportations or we go after employers or we go after, remittances and money transfers. And then all of a sudden, libertarianism, we can't involve the state. Well, I don't want to tell you guys, but you can't have borders without state. So, if you're a libertarian for the abolishment for the state, you're also a libertarian in favor of open borders. That's all there is to it. These people don't have another plan. And so the minute you see actual border enforcement, and this is why these people are so bad, I have to hear constantly, oh, Auron, we're the good libertarians. Why do you lump us all together? Think about Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is garbage on this stuff, man. Thomas Massie hates immigration enforcement. He'll pay lip service to it, but he denies funding. He's always attacking everybody who's involved. It's just garbage. He's good on other stuff. Don't get me wrong. But this is the thing. This is, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, immigration is my issue. It's the issue. I'm not a one issue voter, but I'm pretty close. Okay. It's either agreement, immigration reform or the country comes apart. It's complete disaster. Like the country's over. We have to do this. So if you're a libertarian who's great on everything else, great in foreign policy, great on, I don't know, Israel or whatever everyone's cheering for, great. But if you're against border enforcement, I don't care. You don't matter to me. You're useless. Same thing with people like James Lindsay. He's out there saying, oh, the DHS is full of, woke right people and they all need to be fired because he's exactly who we told you where he was the entire time. He's just a leftist who hates conservatives and is going to go after the administration and try to dox people and get them fired. That's who James is. It's who he's always been. Nothing about this has changed. He just conned a bunch of idiots into believing he was anything else. And so, it doesn't matter. Him, libertarians, whatever. Like, it's all the worst people who are out there pretending like they don't know what's going on. Now, again, there are caveat. There are good libertarians out there. I go on Tom Woods' show. I like Tom. He's a smart guy. He's practical. But the vast majority of them are not. And they just won't admit it. The minute you put their ideology to a real world test, they simply fall apart. And so, that's kind of the level of betrayal you'd expect from these people. But, here we are. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be the final flashpoint. I don't think it's all going to pop off in Minnesota. I'm not saying, the Civil War is coming, be ready. I'm just saying, the build here, the rhetorical build, the build in violence, the build in allowances in violence from state officials, the direct threats issued by sitting politicians to the Trump administration, to law enforcement officers and others. There's only one way this goes, man. There's only one way this goes. When we know that judges are involved in voter fraud and they're going to continue to push that and defend that, like there are only so many options, and I'm just trying to be practical. Again, I'm not trying to, talk people into anything crazy. I'm not trying to, rhetorically escalate the situation. I'm just giving you the facts on the ground and where they can go. And I think, we have to be honest about that. All right, guys, let's go to the questions of the people here real quick. Let's see. No, I'm not. Grim from Red Hood says Aura farming, more like Auron farming. I see what you did there. Thank you very much. I appreciate you supporting the show. Florida Henry says, contrast this with the less response to the murder of Irina Zarutska. Of course, exactly, right? Like they don't care. They don't care if some young innocent person, an immigrant, a kind of person they're supposed to care about, immigrant from Ukraine, they're one of their current hobby horses. They can't even spend 10 seconds talking about how terrible that was. They can't look at it at all. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously that we could call them hypocrites, but what's the point at this point? They're just enemies. They're just people who want the country destroyed. They want a lot of people dead, and they have to be opposed. That's all there is to it. Red Hood says, I want us to win, but like nobody gets hurt. Yes, 100%. That is very much the attitude of libertarians and sadly some conservative commentators as well. I want to win. I want to defeat my enemy, but I don't want to break any artificial fake rules. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I want victory without any cost. That really is honestly, the conservative and often the libertarian mindset in a nutshell. I want victory, but I don't want it to cost me anything. And that's just not how it works. Sean Wayland says, actually, there are no grassroots revolutions. Any revolution is a byproduct of a highly organized group of consensus and professional organizers. Yes, this is Elite Theory 101. I largely agree with that. I don't want to say there's never any popular energy that can lead to uprisings, but I do want to be clear that ultimately for these things to convert into real successful movements, yes, they need exactly what you're talking about. And even when, often we see things that look organic, we should recognize that many, many times they are astroturf. So especially in this case in Minnesota, Sean, I'm 100% with you. This is obviously organized. Antifa is involved. NGOs are involved. The governor of Minnesota, the police in Minnesota, like this, this is a group effort of activists working together to produce a result. None of this is organic. You are not watching an organic movement. You are watching elite coordination. Tiny Stupid Demon says, I'm trying to imagine an alternative history timeline where not only did the southern states not secede, but instead of staying in the Union and being sent giant trainloads of cash on a monthly basis. Yeah, right? Wouldn't that have been great? Yeah. I mean, it's not a poor analogy for what's happening here. You're absolutely right. Eagle Actual says, hey, Auron, I had a crazy guy come to my church with a knife a few months ago, but luckily the entire back row was full of guys prepared with this kind of thing. No one was hurt. Wife was terrified though. Well, I'm very happy to hear that no one was hurt. I am very happy to hear that the men of your church took their duty to protect seriously. Obviously, these are very dangerous times. People enjoy attacking houses of worship. Our enemies are satanic. They do hate Christianity. They do hate Christ and Christians. They will do violence in houses of worship. So thank God that no one was hurt. Thank God that the men of your church were prepared. And just a reminder, everyone needs to be prepared, guys. Everyone goes to church with a gun if you're a guy. That's just what you should be doing. You should be training. You should be preparing. It is your job. Now, don't get me wrong. Your church should also, my church has a security team of ex-military and police officers who are constantly watching, entrances and exits and all those things. But you Anon, you listening, you need to have a firearm. You need to be practicing in with it. You need to be training. You need to be taking it everywhere. You need to take it to church. You need to take it to work. You need to take it where you are. You need to be armed and you need to be prepared. Leftists are out there. They are dangerous. They want to hurt people. It's important that you are prepared. And I'm glad to hear that in this case, you guys were able to protect your church. Cherry Cook Nixon says, I'm tired of living in Mos Eisley. Yeah, Star Wars names everywhere, man. Star Wars names everywhere. He also says, big challenge for us is that the boomers and too many Gen Xers hate discomfort, hoping we get more progress when they are finally out of power. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. The boomers wanted to believe whatever conservatives tell you, boomer right wingers are just as big and bought into the end of history as the left is. They thought politics was over. They had won. You don't have to worry about existential politics anymore. You don't have to worry about violence. You don't have to worry about, real contention, real moral, because we kind of solved all that. We beat Hitler. We conquered the world. U.S. is in charge. We're number one. We got the Constitution. It's just liberty and freedom for here on out. That's not the case. Like, that's not where we're at, and that mentality is going to go away with the boomers. But don't fool yourself. Boomers are also, you know, the majority of white people in the United States, or not the majority, but they are a large percentage of, you know, the majority of them are white. They are large, more, and therefore they are more likely to vote Republican, right wing. Like, they are a huge chunk of the right winning elections. So as much as you might be frustrated with the boomers and some of their mentality when it comes to into history and these things, don't be so excited about their demise, because there is unfortunately a demographic reality sitting behind the loss of the boomers. So that will be a double-edged sword. Don't think that that just solves all your problems. Michael Cesar says, "Are you familiar with the name Michael Oakeshott? And if not, recommending reading him. Particularly recommend reading his book Human Conduct." I am familiar with Michael Oakeshott, though I've never read any of Oakeshott. I do know, for instance, my buddy Carl Benjamin is a fan. I know he's mentioned his philosophy several times. I have just not got into stuff. Maybe one day, but right now my reading list is uh, basically Mount Everest. So I simply cannot add another book at the moment. But thank you for the recommendation. Enlightenment says, Elijah Timons. I don't know how I read that as enlightenment. "I wish the right would expose or dispose of the idea of the immaculate organic protest and rejection of paying activists and the rejection of paying activists with patronage." Yeah, we're working on that, man. I'm with you. You know, every day that's what we're here. We check into the mines, and we go in the mines, and we just go in there, and we just try to get all the coal out. We're going to clear all the coal out, and we're going to make sure it's nothing but diamonds. Um, we're gonna change the right's perception of and political reality. It's gonna happen. It's happening slowly. You can look at the rhetoric, the language, the understanding, the takes. They're all filtering into big outlets, to big names. I hear, you know, the most important people in the world echo points that we were desperately trying to get onto Twitter 5 years ago. So it's coming. I know it's frustrating. I know people get tired of hearing me, repeat some of this stuff, but I promise, man, I'm doing it for a reason. Like, there are people who've been here from the beginning, and to them, they've heard this message 10 times over, and they're like, "Oh boy, Auron's at it again." But trust me, there's a lot of people who for the first time are watching this, and they're like, "Oh, this makes sense," or they're sending it to their brother, or their grandparents or something, and they're shifting that. So we just have to keep at it. I know it's frustrating. I know it's a long slog, but this is how it works. Okay, just repetition is the foundation of pedagogy. You have to teach these people. That's not how politics works. They were completely brainwashed a different way, and it's going to take us a while to undo that brainwashing, and that's just part of the slog. And then Grim also says, to be honest, I'm at the point where I don't necessarily mind a blank check for ICE to do what it takes, especially after rewatching last night's Pony Express. Yeah, I mean, of course, blank check is a little much, but yeah, I don't mind, them getting a large amount of funding. I said this when they first got the big funding from the big beautiful bill. People are saying, "Oh, I can't believe they're signing on for this ICE funding, government spending." It's like, guys, you have to understand, we're going to need a military-sized force that is largely loyal to Donald Trump and the Trump administration to get this done, and that's going to be expensive. And I get it. Libertarians don't like that. Oh, the government. I understand. Tough. Sorry, we need it. I'm sure the money will be wasted in places. I'm sure there will be graft. I'm sure the government will grow. We got to get these people out of the country. We have to. We have to. Sometimes if your leg is caught in a trap, and cutting off your leg is bad, but the other option is dying, in the middle of the forest then you might just have to cut off the leg. It doesn't mean I want to do it. It doesn't mean I want to go around without a leg. I don't want the government to get more powerful. I don't want to waste money. But at this point, if you can explain to me another way we can get these people out of the country without doing any of that stuff, let me know. Otherwise, we got to do this. Okay. I agree. Ultimately, we should go after other non-ICE stuff. We absolutely should be punishing employers. We should be taxing remittances. We should be doing everything we can with soft power. And if I had one criticism of the administration, it'd be this: we seem to be doing more with hard power, which I love, but we're not doing enough with soft power. We're not going after the businesses. We're not passing E-Verify. We're not taxing remittances significantly to get rid of the incentives. We're not banning illegal immigrants from education and hospitals. This is all soft power stuff, and we can do it very quickly, and we can solve a lot of problems if we do it. I know a lot of that stuff's harder because it involves, you have to deal with donor class and the business community, and there's going to be lawsuits about all this stuff too. But I would like to see the administration deploy soft power as well as hard power in this endeavor. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks for sticking with me. Like I said, still recovering, so a little difficult to be on camera, but I should be back on Monday. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been fantastic to speak with you. If it's your first time watching on YouTube, of course, you need to click subscribe, the bell notification, all that stuff when we go live. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you can leave a rating or review, that really helps, guys. Keep boosting me on those numbers. Let's keep moving up the charts. New year, just keep hitting those goals. Really appreciate it. The show just grows every year, and it's a blessing to have you guys with me. So thank you once again for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.